What's going on YouTube? So the Honda HR-V has long been a spacious and very affordable SUV in the Honda lineup. Now for 2026, it is getting a meaningful refresh, which brings in some new features, technology, and styling upgrades this year. So is this the best HR-V they've ever made? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's go ahead and start out under the hood for our quick spec dump. All HR-Vs will come with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with 158 horsepower, and they are not adding a hybrid for the 2026 refresh. It's going to be paired to a CVT for your transmission, and our combined fuel economy is 27 mpg.
Now the base price for the HR-V is $25,000 this year, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, later on in this review, we're also going to be taking it out for a spin to show you the performance of the engine. We'll also get things like our sound level reading, and at the end discuss resale and reliability.
But we'll go ahead and close up the hood so that we can take a look at what's new with the refresh on the outside as well as the inside. Now, starting off the exterior tour with our front design, there might be something new here. You know how Honda is with their refreshes. They don't typically change much with the overall exterior aesthetic. And up in the front, you're not going to notice any huge changes, but just a little bit of detailing that changes depending on which trim level you choose. Since this is the EXL trim level, this is the only model that's going to get the gloss black finish to the grille. And then the actual texture does also change between the different trim levels. Now, as far as the lighting is concerned, we continue to have premium full LED lights across the entire lineup. Even the base LX trim will get these LED lights, including our daytime running light and turn signal indicator. Now, as we walk around to the back, just like with the front, you won't really notice any significant updates.
Yeah, but overall it has a pretty handsome look to it. We have a spoiler up top, we have a wiper as well, and one of my very favorite things about the Honda HR-V is the premium lighting front and rear. So Drew went ahead and hopped inside so we can highlight the taillight unit. As you can see, we have an LED brake light, LED amber turn signal, and an LED reverse light. That's very rare for this segment of vehicle to have that as standard equipment on all models, and indeed that does carry over for the refresh. Now, dropping down to the lower fascia, it's maybe slightly tweaked for this new model, but be aware that this would be a gloss black on other colors, and then you do have this nice silver piece to kind of spice up the design. If you want an exhaust outlet, you can choose the Sport variant.
Now, by far the biggest exterior update is right here with our wheels. We have brand new wheel options across all the trim levels this year. So if you get the base trim, that now has a gray finish to the wheels, which looks a lot better than the kind of cheap silver finish. And then with the EXL, I think this is the best looking wheel of the bunch. It's been upsized 1 inch, so it moved from 17 to now 18 inch alloys, and we've got this new contrast design. It's a huge improvement to the overall aesthetic and really impacts the overall look of the entire exterior, in my opinion. Now, another thing that impacts the look is the fact that this trim has the gloss black wheel arches and lower body surrounds. You can't tell that as much since we have the gloss black exterior, but it makes it all look nice and cohesive. In terms of the mirrors, you are going to have heating and blind spot monitoring on the Sport trim and above.
Now, at the side of the HR-V, the overall vehicle length comes in at 179.8 inches, which is a very good size for this segment. And when it comes to design touches, you will notice that we do not have roof rails here on the EXL model, but one thing that we do have is the rear tinted glass. That's now standard equipment on all trim levels of the HR-V this year. And also new to the HR-V lineup this year are a couple new paint colors. Things like Boost Blue Pearl, so that very bright blue is available here on the Sport trim level, and you also do have a new solar color as well. Now, when it comes to your safety systems, you have quite a lot of those as standard equipment, actually all of them as standard, and as you move up the trim structure, you will further unlock additional features. But guys, there is a very big interior change that we can't wait to show you. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from sound level readings to cargo measurements, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now let's move to the inside. Smart entry and remote start are standard on the sport trim and above. Here's Honda's typical key fob. That means you can just get inside by grabbing behind the door handle. And then taking a look inside the interior, there's definitely more updates than what initially meets the eye, and we'll go through all those updates one by one once we get inside. But I want to start off by talking about the seats. If you like leather seats, this is the trim level you need to get because the EXL is the only one that upgrades from cloth to leather. As you can see, nice stitching detail to this. They're very comfortable as well, and you can get black or gray color options. In terms of the seats themselves, they have 8 ways of power adjustment, but I do want to point out no lumbar support even on this, and this is the only one with a power seat. Let's go ahead and climb inside. Now, as I close up the door, let's look at the rest of the cabin materials. So HRV has always been really quite nice for the subcompact crossover segment, having things like the full leather covering on the armrest. It's going to be hard touch to the center and then a soft touch plastic at the top. Across the upper dashboard, this is all soft touch plastic or leatherette running through there. This has the single vent effect like most of the Hondas in the lineup. And then the thing that's always surprised me is the fact that they pad the center console. That's totally unexpected at this price point. Now, I do want to point out one 2026 update to material. It's very subtle, but I told you I'd tell you all the details. This now is silver on the EXL trim level to kind of elevate it just a little bit. Let's fire it up with the standard push button start. Now that's fired up, let's dive into some individual details. As always, the first place to start is the gauge cluster. This is the partially digital cluster, so this side over here is a 7-inch reconfigurable display, and you can make adjustments right through there. The other side is actually an analog gauge cluster. And then as we move back to the steering wheel, you have leather wrapping on the sport trim and the EXL. Heating, though, is not available. And the steering wheel itself is manual, tilt, and telescoping. Now, let's look at interior storage. So obviously as a smaller SUV, we still want to see some good storage, and Honda has worked their magic with the HRV as well, because our center console fits in 14 donuts. That is really very good for a subcompact crossover, and definitely better than a lot of the competition. Of course, you know, we like to put the donuts in there so that we can tell you things like that and compare to the rivals. Now, further up, you have this big storage area here, which is like a pass-through and has its USB connections on both sides. Over here, you've got your cup holders. And then this right here is a wireless phone charging pad, of course, but it's now standard on every single trim level, even the LX for 2026. Now as we pull back to the shifter, it's just the traditional style. Pull back for drive, you can go into a sport mode as well. And then when we go into reverse, here's our standard backup camera. You got a couple different angles that you can choose between, or I guess 3 angles, and you do have active trajectory as well. Parking sensors come on just this top EXL trim level. Back behind there is where you find your drive mode control. And you also have your electronic parking brake with brake hold function. Now, as we continue up the dashboard, let's go ahead and talk about the climate controls. So what comes standard is a single zone automatic setup. This EXL gets the dual zone automatic setup. And there's another subtle upgrade for 2026, and that's the fact that when you turn up the temperature, it now glows red, and when you turn down the temperature, it now glows blue for the dual zone automatic setup. As you see, we also have 3-stage heated seats as well. And let's move on up to this area. We'll start with our volume knob. So the top trim comes with an 8-speaker sound system. Let's give it a sample right now. Overall sound quality is perfectly fine, although as you go down the trim structure, you do progressively lose speakers. So if you like, listening to good quality music, you'll probably want to go for this trim level since this gives you the most speakers, even though it's not a branded audio system. All right, so now let's move into this area right here, our screen. So this is a big thing I want to highlight for the 2026 refresh. That's the fact that we've got a 9-inch screen. It's now standard across all trim levels. So previously, if you wanted this 9-inch display, you had to get just the fully loaded model, the EXL. Now you get it across the lineup. That does also mean that now wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay are standard features across the entire trim lineup. That's what you can see right here with the wireless Android Auto. And I'll press this button here and go back to the main screen because I do want to highlight something though. You'll notice that there's not really a lot going on here. That's because the Honda Link software from the 9-inch screen has actually kind of been deleted and replaced with this more basic interface. It just has these few buttons here, no real home screen, no built-in navigation or anything like that. So it's definitely designed for you to always have your phone paired because there's not really much you can do with this system at all. Up top here, we've got an auto dimming mirror on our top trim. And then I'll press that button right there and open up the sunroof here on the EXL.
And let's talk about the rear seat in the HR-V. Now, this is going to have some really strong elements and maybe some elements that aren't quite as strong. So let's go ahead and start out with the really great stuff about the rear seat. The space is really a highlight of this vehicle. So we're sitting at about 38 inches of legroom, about 38 inches of headroom. Those are really impressive figures. You know Honda does really good things when it comes to packaging. That is indeed the case even for their smallest SUV. As far as the legroom figure, of course, we brought along the official Car Confections ruler to see how much knee room I have with the seat adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8". I'm 5'9". We are sitting at 8 inches of additional knee space. That is fantastic for a vehicle in this segment. Also, my feet can easily slide up underneath of the seats. So overall, definitely one of the very most spacious options that you can get in this subcompact SUV segment. Be aware, though, that the rear seats do not recline, and there's also not going to be a center armrest. And that kind of takes me to a couple of things that I'm a little disappointed by. First of all, there really aren't any features. So you'll notice this little hole here, no vents or anything like that. There's also not going to be any USB port. So it is a pretty basic rear seat, and this is the fully loaded example. So it's just not available on the HR-V. Now, as far as the door trim, hard touch on the upper part, hard touch in the middle section. It is going to be a leatherette pad on the armrest though, so that's nice, and you do have a little bit of bottle storage. Now walking up to the tailgate, regardless of what trim level you select, you will just have a manually opening tailgate. And as far as the space is concerned, that's once again another bright spot for the HR-V, 24.4 cubic feet with the seats up and 55 cubic feet as a maximum with those seats folded down. Speaking of the seats, all you have to do is just easily reach up there and that will fold them down 60-40 split to get you that maximum 55 cubic feet of cargo capacity. Now, by the way, if you are curious as to how this HR-V might compare against all the other numerous subcompact SUVs on the market, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now, the reason you do that is because there are, I believe, 14 different options in this segment, and we've gone through all of them, reviewed them, and ranked them in individual categories such as cargo capacity, drive experience, luxury features, resale reliability, technology, all the things that might matter most to you, and you can go through and arrange as you wish. So if you want to make an informed buying decision, definitely utilize that tool on our website. Now, back to the HR-V. The seats do fold completely flat with the floor. Let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. Because this is a Car Confections review after all, 71 inches of length behind Drew's 5'8" driving position. From behind the second row of seats, 33 inches of length. Opening is 42 inches wide. As far as height, that is coming in at 29 inches tall. And I'll get the load-in height for you as well. That's going to be pretty impressive at 27 inches. Now, underneath of the floor, you will find a spare tire as well as maybe a little bit of additional storage space. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the refreshed Honda HR-V. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be getting things like our sound level reading to see if they've made it any quieter for the refresh. But first, we need to go ahead and start by giving you a hard acceleration.
right, so that was an acceleration up to about 50 miles an hour. We are going up a little bit of an incline before this red light caught us here. But like we talked about at the beginning, the powertrain situation does stay the same for the 2026 model year. So what that means is that it is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, makes 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. Overall, in terms of the acceleration, this is on the slower side. You could probably tell that. This segment, generally speaking, is just slower across the board. Compared to some of the rivals, though, this is on the slower side of the segment.
Yeah, definitely when it comes to the naturally aspirated engine, no turbo going on at all, I think the torque kind of lets you down a little bit. 138 pound-feet of torque, it really doesn't give you any sensation of pushing you back in your seat as you accelerate. It really feels fine if you're just accelerating normally, but you know, when you really press the throttle down, it just doesn't get much faster. Which is one of the main reasons why we really hoped Honda would have added the hybrid system from the Civic over here on the HR-V. I think that would be a huge improvement for this model. It'd give you about 200 horsepower, which is a big improvement over what you have here, and also some better fuel economy, which we'll talk about a little bit later. However, Honda has not, confirmed that or even really mentioned that they were going to bring a hybrid to the HR-V at this point.
Now, as far as the transmission is concerned, this has a continuously variable transmission, and it does have shift simulation on board as well. This is pretty responsive for a continuously variable transmission. Certainly when you put your foot down, you get a response quite quickly.
Yeah, and power is routed to the ground via either the front wheels as standard equipment or optional all-wheel drive. And let me just go ahead and talk about fuel economy as well. So that's another area where I'm a little disappointed here because we are sitting at 26, 32, 28 mpg for front-wheel drive or 25, 30, 27 with all-wheel drive. So neither of those fuel economy figures are going to be class leading in any capacity, even compared to the traditional gas variants, not even factoring in that they have hybrid variants in a lot of the competition. So that is something to keep in mind. This is not the best when it comes to fuel economy, which is another reason why I wish they would add the hybrid.
As I kind of go around that little corner there, I want to talk briefly about the dynamics. Obviously, this is not a focus of this SUV. That being said, Honda is one of the brands that's really excellent about kind of bringing in that sporty DNA across all their lineup, even cars that aren't designed to be sporty. That's the case with this. So it definitely has above average handling, a lot less body roll than a lot of the competition, and they do a good job with the steering, making it nice and responsive, but not too heavy.
Now that we're turning back out onto the highway, let's take a second to discuss ride quality for the HR-V. Now, when it comes to this, the HR-V does a pretty good job overall, even despite the larger 18-inch alloy wheels on the outside for this EXL model. I think it does a good job of soaking up the bumps when you hit them in the road. I will point out also that these EXL seats, I think, are a really big upgrade over the cloth seats we've sampled out in some of the other versions. Those are going to be a little bit firmer. These have a nice softness to us and feel a lot more premium, that's for sure. Now, we're also going 55 miles per hour, so I want to go ahead and get our sound level reading. Normal drive mode, fan speed 1. .8 decibels is what we are looking at as our sound level reading in the 26 Honda HR-V EXL. We don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to other subcompacts because we can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. And as far as how that compares to some of the rivals, there will be quieter options such as the Kia Soul, the Kia Seltos, the Hyundai Kona. Those are all some of the quietest options in the segment. However, the Honda HR-V, is tending to be on the louder end when it comes to sound level reading. This one specifically is better, and I think it's because we're in the EXL trim level. Honda is a brand that sometimes will add in extra sound deadening as you go up the trim structure, so I think there is a bit of a difference when you go for this fully loaded example of the HR-V.
All All right, let's jump into today's Slam Dunk and Airball. I'll begin with the Slam Dunk. That is just the new features that they added for 2026, in particular for the LX trim. So if you're looking at the base trim, they've added a lot of nice things, including like the bigger screen, the wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, the wireless phone charger, and other things that really, I think, step up the value equation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on the flip side, for our Airball, we wish Honda had done just a little bit more and really made this vehicle in line with something like the Honda Civic. Things that this model is still missing that the Honda Civic has would be the hybrid is probably the biggest difference. We really need them to add that to the HR-V lineup, and just kind of some weird things like this overall screen setup, not having any software on board, whereas the fully loaded Honda Civic is going to have Google built in. It just is a little bit weird because they are a very similar price point, so I wish Honda would go ahead and make some feature parity between the two models. And let's discuss pricing. So, as I said at the very beginning, we start at $25,400 this year. That does represent about a $300 to $400 price increase on all the trim levels for the 2026 refresh model. Now, if you want the fully loaded EXL, that starts at $29,500. As you can see, we have the all-wheel drive EXL example, so that's even more. That's $31,550 plus $1,395 destination. All told, we're sitting at $32,945 as tested today. Now, if you'd like to buy a Honda HR-V or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you do that is because we have a tool on our website that'll connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealership negotiation. If you'd like to take advantage of all that, including our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that in our video description, as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's dive into resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Honda HR-V's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth 64.8% of original MSRP, which, by the way, is the best in the entire auto industry, brand-wise. And in the 10-year and 120,000 mile metric, 34.3%. Those are both fantastic figures.
Honda also does really well when it comes to our combined reliability index. So what this is a combination of 3 very important and very trustworthy sources of reliability studies in the US combined to paint a more holistic picture. In this regard, Honda is once again one of the highest rated brands compared to all other vehicle makes.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability information, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, when it comes to your warranty, you have a 3-year 36,000 mile basic warranty, a 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. Honda does also include 1 year and 12,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. And guys, that's going to wrap up our in-depth review of the refreshed 2026 Honda HR-V. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we really hope you did, we'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to get the latest car reviews such as this on this refreshed HR-V, and you're also going to get access to tons more automotive content, including comparisons and news, so you won't want to miss out. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.